Alrighty, folks, good evening to you. Meteorologist Michael Wilhite here with Southern Indiana weather. It is 8:24 here on a Tuesday night, and it's cold outside, but it looks like we've got a slow warming trend up for us, and that's a good thing. Tonight's video update, again, sponsored by High Voltage Mobile DJ Services. You can contact Nathan at 630-9465 or visit him on the web at djhighvoltage.com. They've got a lot of great things to offer you. So again, if you've got a prom or a wedding or a party or anything where you need a mobile DJ, Nathan's one of the best. Give him a call and tell him Southern Indiana Weather sent you. Okay, we have something you don't see very often happening down south, and that's really a pretty historic snowstorm happening down south. I mean, how often, seriously, do you see this kind of precipitation? Atlanta absolutely got hammered by snow and ice today, and they are just in very dire straits down there in Atlanta. Of course, they don't have the ability to deal with it like we do up here in the north. I mean, even slide down here and take a look at the Gulf Coast. I mean, Mobile, Alabama is facing some sleet and freezing rain at this point. Even down here on Gulf Shores, Alabama, Pensacola, dealing with it. I mean, this is just, and snow extending all the way back up here into Virginia. Now, you expect snow. This is not that bad up here, but this far south, you certainly don't expect that. And if we just throw our temperatures on here, you can clearly see why. I mean, just we're totally in the deep freeze as far as it comes into the nation. Let me just kind of back out, and you can see how far south this cold plunge just absolutely extends. And unfortunately, it looks like we're in for another cold night around here. Temperatures across the area here at 8:30 at night. Well, really, the warm spot looks up here closer towards the Vincennes area with 11 and 10 in Evansville, and the rest of us just sort of suffering through single digits. I think we're going to go down to the low single digits tonight before we start to warm up potentially into the 20s tomorrow, all right? Let's talk about what to expect over the next few days. First of all, let me say we've got a storm brewing next week that we'll look at here in a second. That looks very impressive at this point, but the precipitation type is yet to be determined. We'll talk about that in a second. I know I posted some things on Facebook, and there are many that will want to understand that. Quickly, though, before we get to that, this weekend we're going to face another situation where we may have a tiny bit of snow before it turns rain. I do think it's going to be a mostly rain event, though. We'll take a look at how the NAM times things out. We're going to be pretty much dry until Thursday, when we have a chance of some light snow flurries or some snow showers maybe on Thursday night. Here we come on Friday morning, though. Here we go. Now we're on Friday morning. And you start to see this system ejecting out of the panhandle area here of Texas and Oklahoma, and you see this system moving our way. Now the NAM, you notice the first blue line, this 540 line, that is the rain-snow changeover line approximately. It's not 100% accurate, but it gives us an idea of the general location of it. The NAM keeps us as an all-rain event for this weekend, and of course it only sees out until about 1 a.m. on Saturday night, but the trend here looks like it would keep us all rain, all right? Temperature-wise with the NAM, by the time we start out on Friday morning, we haven't got the rain just yet. We're into the upper 20s, but then very quickly by the time 11 o'clock rolls around, we're already over the freezing mark, and then we warm up to even, the upper 30s here, potentially even to near 40 in parts of the area by the time. And then really, as we go throughout this, even at night time, we don't really warm below freezing according to the NAM model. So this would lean me towards an all-rain type of setup for this weekend based on the NAM. The GFS has a little bit of differences. Here we start out on Friday at 7 a.m. You see this first blue line, the rain-snow changeover line, is sort of over our area. So what you can tell whenever it's in our area like this is we're going to be in the battle zone, and that's exactly what we find is a battle zone here for us. As we advance this in time, we have some very light precipitation on Friday. Now our air will be fairly dry at this point, so a lot of this may fall as what we call virga, and it just sort of dries up before it gets to the surface, all right? It may not reach, but eventually it will start on Friday and reach the surface as we get more of it pushed into the area. By that time, though, we may actually warm up enough. You see that the trend here is as this low ejects, even on the GFS, we certainly warm up, and really the whole state of Indiana turns to rain with the GFS eventually, and potentially some pretty heavy rain with that. As the system exits, then we may have a few scattered snow showers on the back side of it, as you can see, but by the time that blue line goes through us, there's not much of any precipitation, maybe just some flurries at the end, and that's a pretty common thing, all right? Let's talk about precipitation type. We can look at that with the GFS model. Here we start out at Friday at 7 a.m., and you notice, again, we haven't got a whole lot falling in the area. It probably would be snow if we did have anything falling, but again, our air is going to be dry because of the days that we've had without moisture leading up to this event. So it may start as all rain eventually, but very quickly you see by the time 1 o'clock in the afternoon comes, we're kind of in that battle zone. You see the 35-degree line, so the GFS is warming us up pretty nicely. And then eventually it turns to an all-rain type of event for us. You see maybe some light snow starting to mix in with the GFS here for portions of Indiana, of our area, and then portions of us being in rain. So again, the GFS, as I said, is in that yucky transition zone. But then even overnight, the low starts to lift north. And by the time Saturday morning comes around, you know, it's lifted far enough north that we are an all-rain event. You've got some freezing precipitation to worry about, some freezing rain towards Indianapolis, snow north of that, but then eventually the whole state becomes into the rain. But then on the back side of the low, the GFS is wanting to indicate sort of that transition from potentially freezing rain into the snow coming through us on Saturday night. I'm not completely buying that because I think most of our precipitation will be dried up by then, and so we'll just have to see. Then high pressure starts to take charge for a few days. Cooler temperatures back down just a little bit. Temperatures at least will moderate a little bit. Our normal high this time of the year is 42, so this high that we had today in the low to mid-teens, that's just sucky, and that is 30 degrees below where we should be almost. All right. Next week, though, we could have what could potentially be a pretty significant storm. All right, I want to talk about what we do know and what we don't know at this point. What we don't know is a lot more than what we do know, unfortunately. As you can see from this, here we are on next Tuesday night. This is for 7 p.m. according to the Euro model here, and you've got a very heavy rain event over for us. Notice the first blue line, 540 is well to our north. This would be an all heavy rain event, but it wouldn't stay that way for very long as you put this into motion. The Euro has the low tracking very close to us, which would warm us up plenty enough, but then as the low moves off, so on the back side of this system, we're in the all snow zone, and it's still got very heavy precipitation over us. So with the Euros leaning at this point, it would be a very heavy rain going to a very heavy snow setup for us. So now that's not the only player in this equation. If we just go back to what the GFS says and we continue to move this out, we'll see what the GFS says. And you notice, again, the GFS takes us into sort of a rain going into a snow type of setup again, but then quickly comes into a snow setup for us as well. So it's very similar to the GFS and would give us some impressive snow totals with it as well. So the question is, will this happen or not? Here's what we do know. The models, the major players, are indicating a very heavy precipitation event. As you can see, indicated on these very clearly by all the blues, even some of the yellow shades. Some of the yellow shades with this, you're talking an inch, over an inch to close to an inch and a half of precipitation in the 6-hour window. So if that were snow over us, we would be hammered into Snowmageddon, all right? That's not over us. That's with the rain event. We start to come into the greens and maybe even some of the blues, and that's whenever we start to get closer to a half inch of precipitation in 6 hours. Well, at a 10-to-1 ratio, a half an inch in 6 hours, that's close to a foot of snow. So that's certainly that'd be 10 inches worth of snow, 5/100ths of an inch. So again, this is not something that we want to play around with. This is something that we want to take seriously enough that we watch it in the coming days to see what's going to happen. Honestly, this is going to flip-flop completely back and forth over coming days. It's a little too early to be excited and say it's going to be a mega snowstorm at this point. Now, I know there are some sites out there that will say that. I posted the snow map out there earlier on my site, but if you go to Facebook.com and I've got my personal page up here, but if I take it over to Southern Indiana Weather and we just kind of interact with you all right. Here's what I said, and I'm pleased with what I said on here. Here's how I always qualify things. I'll post this big snow total, but clearly, remember, at this point, there's no sense in worrying about totals. It may be impressive right now, but a lot can change in a week. And you will always see me say something like that if I'm going to post an impressive snow total map this far out. Because the point of the matter is, I want to warn you guys in advance of what could happen. This is one that we want to keep an eye on. Because if this does happen, this is going to be a very disruptive event. But at the same time, it's way too early to tell whether it's exactly going to be this or not. Let me illustrate that for you. Here's what the current GFS is saying. This is the one that I posted. And you see, man, this is Snowmageddon for us. This is almost 11 inches of snow for some of us. And then, a 15-inch snow up here around the Terre Haute area. I mean, this would just be ridiculously buried in snow. Here's the problem. We'll go back over the previous 3 runs. The European model is run twice a day, all right? It's run at 7 in the morning and then 7 in the evening. This is the one from 7 this morning. We'll see what the one tonight does. But the one from 7 o'clock yesterday evening, what did it do? Way different, right? Still some very heavy snow totals, but notice how much further suppressed to the south they are. Gives us a little bit lighter totals. Oh, only 9 inches here, 5 inches here, compared to, 10, 11 inches, 15 inches. That's way different. Still some impressive snows, but way different. Now, go back one model run prior to that, and here's what it did. Notice the heavy snow was way to the north in this run. One run even prior to that, the snow was even further north. So, what can you notice? Well, there tends to be a southward trend. This is the oldest model we have available to show you right now. So, and then one run after that, it trended south. Then it trended way far south. Now it's starting the more northward trend again. Look, honestly, this is going to flip-flop around about a dozen or more times. Really? Well, I guess not a dozen or more times. How many model runs do we have between now and the event? That's how many times it's going to flip-flop around. You just calculate that out, folks. This is going to be one of those things that we're just not going to know. And here's the other reason why. If you go back and you actually take a look, let me get back to the GFS here. So here's the system with that. Let me just back this up in time, if I can get the model to cooperate with me here. I want to show you where this is pretty much at. Here's the storm system in question right here, and here we are at 1 a.m. on Sunday. So in other words, right now the storm system is out on the Pacific Ocean. There's no way to sample that, all right? How do we know what it's doing in the Pacific Ocean? Well, we do have some weather buoys out there which gives us some data that we feed into our models, but those are very sparse and just very limited in number out in the ocean, all right? Here in the United States, though, we have an extensive upper air network. Once this thing actually makes landfall, which the GFS is poised to take this, making landfall right around 7 p.m. on Sunday night. So if that's the case, and you see it's a very fast-moving system here, because it goes all the way, from California over to our area in basically 2 days, 2.5 days, all right? Because here we are Wednesday overnight. And you see that the GFS takes it very far south of us, which would make a favorable track for heavy snow for us. But, nonetheless, this system is still over the Pacific Ocean, so there's just no way that we can know at this point, folks. So here's my point with this. Snow lovers, for you snow lovers that are out there, don't despair yet, okay? I know the Euro has been saying a mega snowstorm all season long, and most of the season it's been wrong. I've not been impressed with the European model and how it's handled. But, to also be fair, most of what we've had are clipper systems, and the European model does not do well with clipper systems. It does do well with normal systems. This is not a clipper. This is one coming up from the Gulf of Mexico that's got plenty of Gulf moisture to funnel up with it. So maybe, just maybe, the European will do a little bit better this time. It's up in the air. We'll see. So snow lovers, don't be disappointed yet. Snow haters, don't be disappointed yet either, because the reality is we don't know what it's going to do at this point, but what we do know is watch the next Tuesday time frame, and I'll be here to keep you updated with what's going on, and that's about all that we can say really up to this point as far as that goes. All right, southernindianaweather.com. Here's your forecast. I believe we're going down to a low in the mid to low single digits, depending on where you are tonight. It's possible. Those into our northern counties with a heavier snowpack could go below zero again. Either way, folks, it's going to be cold. Mid-20s tomorrow. Hey, 30s starting to return on Thursday. Friday, then you got that chance of a rain or light snow mix, but I think we warm up into the upper 30s. Eventually, it will go all rain, and then rain likely on Saturday. I have not updated my forecast to include Tuesday yet at this point, but I will, of course, by tomorrow, because I update these every day. This is the forecast that I updated this morning. But if I had to make my first guess right now, I would probably just include a chance of rain or snow in the forecast, because really we don't know. It looks like snow at this point. I didn't show you the Canadian model. The Canadian model burns us and gives us all rain, so that's certainly something to see. And the other thing I will say is the way this low is tracking up from Texas, we've already seen that one time this year, folks. And it was the one where the models were saying right before the event, yeah, it's going to be a mega snowstorm, and then we got the all rain event basically at the beginning of this month. Yeah, it's a similar setup, so it's something we're going to have to watch. Nothing is guaranteed right now, but we'll be here to track it. Well, that's it for tonight's update, folks. I'll have another one of these as time goes on. For Southern Indiana Weather, I'm meteorologist Michael Wilhite. Have a great night, folks, and start preparing.